She texted me at 6:12 p.m. Going on vacation with my ex, don't be jealous. 11 words. That's all it took to flip my life on its head. I didn't throw the phone, and I didn't beg. I looked at my 6-year-old son across the table, wiped cheese off his chin, and started a clock in my head. 2 weeks. That's how long she said she'd be gone. In the next minutes, you'll see exactly how a father in suburban Atlanta answers a message like that without raising his voice. Custody first, money second, truth last. No yelling, no threats, just signatures, timestamps, and consequences. Before you decide I'm cold, hear me. I'm not jealous. I'm responsible. If your spouse sent that text tonight, would you argue, cry, or plan? Keep watching. Because by the time her plane touched down, her card wouldn't. And by the time the sun set, the first door she tried to open, hers, wouldn't recognize her anymore. Jake was kicking his heels against the dining chair, making his fork into a tiny airplane, when my phone buzzed across the counter. Tuesday night, rain on the windows, mac and cheese cooling in a blue bowl we've owned since our first apartment. I wiped a smudge off his chin and told him to finish 3 more bites. That's when the second buzz came, a long vibration that felt like a string pulled tight inside my chest. I glanced at the screen, saw her name, and felt the kind of pause older men understand. The pause before a doctor clears his throat, before a mechanic says, "Come look at this," before a mortgage officer slides a paper your way. I tapped the message open with a thumb that suddenly felt heavy. Jake asked if we could watch the Braves after homework. I said we could. My voice sounded normal. The blue bowl steamed. The rain hammered harder. I read the words. I wish I could tell you I laughed it off. I'm not 25 anymore. You learn to trust the alarms your body sets without asking. The same hush that falls when a dog pricks its ears. The same chill you get when the furnace coughs in January and you know the power bill will not be the worst part. I watched a drop of cheese slide down Jake's spoon like a slow clock. I wanted to pretend it was a prank, or a typo, or the wrong number. But the name was right, and the tone was familiar. I took a breath the way a coach taught us before a free throw. Bend, exhale, look straight. My thumb hovered. My brain listed chores, trash night, math worksheet, bath, story time, like I could outrun the message by doing normal things. Then I remembered a whisper in my father's advice. When the house is on fire, you don't argue about the smoke. You move. I opened the thread, and there it was, simple as a receipt. Going on vacation with my ex. Don't be jealous. 11 words. I read them once for meaning, twice for tone, a third time because denial likes to pretend it's proofreading. People my age know the weight of paperwork. Words sign mortgages, end jobs, start wars, save lives. These words didn't shout. They smirked. I set the phone face down and focused on Jake's last bite. He asked for milk. I poured it without spilling, the way you drive a bad road without tapping the brakes. Then I picked up the phone again and stared until the screen dimmed. I could fire back a paragraph, a threat, a plea. Instead, I counted to 10. I watched the second hand sweep. I heard the rain. I felt the hinge inside me choose. When I looked down again, I typed slowly. Enjoy your vacation. Take your time. And I meant it. While Jake picked a cartoon, my mind walked backward through our years. Madison in a thrift store sundress, hair pinned up with a pencil, laughing in a kitchen with no dishwasher. Our first winter when the heater clicked all night and we wore socks to bed. The vows we wrote on cheap index cards because the florist had eaten the budget. There were true smiles in those days, and real work. We built a home one paycheck at a time, celebrated small victories, used minivan that ran, a yard with patchy grass, a grill that burned hot on Sundays. Memory is a kind editor. It wants to cut the parts that hurt. But it can't erase the more recent footage. The locked phone face down, late nights that smelled like new perfume, a silence at breakfast that felt like distance, not peace. I wanted the old film back. I understood the new film better. Denial keeps you seated. Reality makes you stand. Jake curled into my side the way little boys do when storms drum on the roof. He asked if thunder could break windows. I said no, and meant it. There's a posture men my age recognize. You make your back square so the people under your roof can lean on it. I remembered holding a flashlight for my father while he fixed a leaking pipe, how he never swore at the wrench even when water soaked his sleeves. He hummed. He kept turning. He finished the job, then dried his hands and checked the valve again. I looked at my son and made the same promise without saying a word. I would not shout. I would not make our kitchen a battlefield. I would make it a shelter. I tucked him into pajamas, read one chapter, and waited for his breathing to slow. The phone lay dark beside me. The decision did not. I would not break. I would build. When the house went quiet, I took the phone to the kitchen table and turned on the small lamp we've had since the baby monitor days. I typed a dozen sharp replies in my head and deleted all of them without touching a key. Anger writes fast. Consequences write permanent. Men who've dealt with insurance forms and tax folders know the power of clean lines and clear dates. I opened a new note and listed the simple facts. Time, message, promise to be gone 2 weeks. Then I did the opposite of what a wounded heart wants. I typed slow. Enjoy your vacation. Take your time. I watched the dots appear, disappear, then bloom into a reply, surprised that I wasn't begging, testing whether I'd chase. I didn't. I placed the phone face down and let silence work. Calm isn't surrender. It's the doorway to strategy. I turned off the lamp and went to bed on purpose, for a reason. I woke before my alarm to the sound every parent knows, the house breathing, the fridge humming, the gutters ticking as the rain eased. In that kind of quiet, a plan can either grow or rot. I made coffee and stood by the sink the way my father used to stand before leaving for early shifts, shoulders square, eyes clear. I took out a yellow pad and wrote in big, simple letters, "Protect Jake." Then I broke it into steps. Lawyer first, paper first. Keep it about care, not punishment. Bank next. Secure what pays for shoes and dentist visits. Evidence last, not gossip. Proof. I thought about the way older neighbors stock a storm kit. Batteries, water, radio. You don't wait for the wind to start lifting roofs. You get ready. I rinsed the cup, put Jake's lunch into his backpack, and checked the weather. The rain had stopped. The decision had not. At sunrise, I would move, without hesitation. On the drive to school, the last 3 months replayed like a dash cam you forgot was running. You know the sounds of your own house, the door that sticks in summer, the step that squeaks, the drawer that catches. You also know when something is off. Her phone lived face down. Her laughter stopped landing at home and started living in messages I never heard. Work ran late, then later. New perfume for no occasion. A second gym bag that never smelled like sweat. Conversations that sounded like fog. A lot of words, no shape. The old passwords didn't work. The new rules always did. I need space. I'm finding myself. I used to think finding yourself meant driving back roads alone with a good station on the radio. Now it meant unanswered calls and a calendar with blank squares. I gripped the wheel, kissed Jake's head at drop-off, and let the truth sit beside me. It didn't blink anymore. I parked in the lot, sat with the engine ticking, and chose the grown man's road. I would not duel by text. I would not audition for pity. I would protect my son and my sanity the way you protect a roof before a storm, by tightening the shingles, not by yelling at the clouds. I opened my calendar and cleared the morning. I called Robert Hayes, the attorney a business friend had sworn by. His assistant said, 8 a.m., bring everything. I printed the message. I photographed the timestamp. I wrote down exactly what she promised. 2 weeks, maybe more. I packed a folder like a binder my mother kept for warranties. Receipts in order, tabs labeled, no drama. Oh, then I did the most important thing. I looked at the picture of Jake on my lock screen and said out loud, "I've got you." The words steadied my hands. The decision steadied my feet. At sunrise, I walked toward paper instead. I parked outside Robert Hayes' office before sunrise, coffee going cold in the cup holder while the lobby lights flicked on floor by floor. The receptionist waved me in early, like she'd seen this kind of storm before. His door was propped open with a law book, diplomas on the wall, family photo on the credenza. He shook my hand the way coaches used to, firm, centering, and said, "Tell me exactly what happened." I laid the folder on his desk, printout of the message, timestamp, my notes. He read without interrupting, pen tapping once when he reached the line, "Don't be jealous." Older men know when a professional shifts gears. The room gets quiet and purposeful. He asked 2 questions. "Where's your son right now?" "With me." "How long is she gone?" 2 weeks, maybe longer." He nodded, clicked his pen shut, and turned to his computer. "All right, Mr. Carter, we're filing for emergency custody this morning." And that's when my hands stopped shaking. I slid my phone across the mahogany, the screen still open to the thread. He angled it toward the window to catch the light, then handed it back and said, "Email me the screenshots, original metadata if you have it." I did. He printed the message, enlarged it, stapled the timestamp, and tucked copies into a labeled tab like the warranty binder my mother kept in a kitchen drawer. "Let's be clear," he said. "We're not building a drama, we're building a record." He asked about pickups, bedtimes, daycare contact forms, pediatrician visits, simple, human details courts actually care about. I answered with dates, names, and reminders on my calendar that had little star emojis beside dentist appointments. He didn't smile, but the pen stopped tapping. "Good," he said. "You've been the daily parent." He pointed to the printout. "And she put this in writing." He looked at the clock. "If we move now, we can request a same-day hearing." My stomach settled. Hayes leaned back and translated the law into plain talk. "Judges aren't here for gossip. They center the child. If a parent leaves a 6-year-old for a 2-week romantic trip, announces it in writing, and makes no provision for care, the court calls that abandonment." He turned the page and underlined the word "leaves." "They're not grading feelings. They're measuring responsibility. Who feeds him? Who gets him to school? Who answers when the nurse calls at 11 a.m.? I thought of the blue bowl, the math worksheets, the pediatrician portal on my phone. He slid a form toward me. "Emergency temporary custody protects stability. It's a bridge, not the whole case." He paused. "You'll keep it boring. No chest-beating texts, no social media, no surprises." Older men understand. The quiet fixes the leak. The shouting floods the basement. He gathered the papers. "We'll file now," he added, almost gently. "And yes, this message will be Exhibit A." I exhaled like a tire finding pavement. A paralegal appeared with a notary stamp and the kind of calm you only see in operating rooms and clerk windows. We reviewed each line, names spelled right, dates correct, the message attached, the timeline clear. I initialed here, here, and here, each mark a small plank in a bridge across rough water. Hayes dictated a brief that read like a weather report, not a headline. Child's age, mother's stated absence, father's primary caregiving, request for immediate order. "We're asking for what you already do every day," he said. "We're just making it official until a full hearing." The printer hummed. The notary pressed that round stamp that makes paper feel heavy. Hayes checked his watch. "Clerk's office opens on the half hour. With luck, we get a judge by 2. I remembered my father saying, "If it matters, you show up early and you bring a pen." We gathered the stack. My hands steadied further. Paper doesn't rage. Paper moves. There's a line you cross when the pen touches down, the line between thinking and acting. I signed the retainer, the verifications, the affidavit that said plainly what my son ate for breakfast and who tucked him in on school nights. My name looked older than it used to, like it had been through weather. Hayes didn't push small talk. He just slid the next page and said, "Breathe." I did. I thought of Jake's backpack, the dinosaur keychain he insists on clipping to the zipper, the pizza day calendar pinned to our fridge. "You'll keep routine normal," Hayes said, almost reading my mind. "Structure is mercy for kids." He capped his pen. "Once we file, you don't respond to taunts. You respond to dates and times." I nodded. The paralegal made 3 tidy stacks, each corner squared. We stood. Hayes buttoned his jacket. "Let's go see the clerk." Outside, the rain had thinned to a mist. The day felt newly solid. Fulton County's family courthouse smells like copy paper, coffee, and nerves. We passed a bulletin board with flyers for parenting classes and a vending machine that swallowed $1 before giving up a ginger ale. The clerk scanned the packet, flipped a few pages, and stamped the top with a sound like a seatbelt clicking home. "Judge Harrison has openings this afternoon," she said. "You'll get a text when you're slotted." We sat on a wooden bench that remembered 100 similar mornings. Hayes reviewed our notes, circled 3 points to hit, and rehearsed them with me quietly. The text, the caregiving routine, the absence. "Keep your answers short. Facts carry farther than adjectives," he said. I watched a dad across the hall braid his daughter's hair while she played a spelling game on a tablet. Ordinary life, holding steady in a building made for storms. My phone buzzed. Case number, courtroom, time. Hayes stood. "Showtime," he said softly. We walked in. Judge Harrison wore the look of a man who has heard everything twice. He adjusted his glasses and nodded for Hayes to begin. My attorney kept it simple. "Your Honor, Exhibit A is a text from Mrs. Carter to Mr. Carter, time-stamped last night, stating she is leaving for 2 weeks with a former partner. The child, age 6, is in Mr. Carter's care." The judge held up the enlarged printout. He read the 11 words aloud. Hearing them in that room felt like watching a matchlight near dry leaves. He looked over the rim of his glasses. "Is Mrs. Carter present?" Silence answered. "Noted," he said. Hayes slid a short stack of school emails, doctor visits, and a calendar showing pickups and bedtimes. "Daily caregiving by Mr. Carter," he said. The judge didn't lean back or sigh. He just organized the papers in a neat line like tools on a workbench and said, "I've heard enough for today." "Temporary custody awarded to Mr. Carter pending full hearing," Judge Harrison said, his voice even, like a man reading the weather. "Mother's visitation suspended until further order. Father to maintain routine, school, medical care." He initialed the order, pushed it to the clerk, and raised the gavel. The sound cracked through my chest and settled something that had been rattling all morning. He added one more line, eyes on me. "No communication except about the child, and in writing." It was a boundary wrapped in authority, the kind older men respect instinctively. Hayes nodded once, approval without celebration. The clerk stamped copies and handed me one still warm from the printer, paper heavier than it looked. We thanked the court and stepped into the hallway where fluorescent lights hummed and adrenaline finally had somewhere to go. Hayes checked his list. "We deliver copies to school and pediatrician," he said. "Then you go be dad." The elevator dinged. Doors opened. In the parking lot, I sat behind the wheel and let the air conditioner climb from lukewarm to cool while my pulse did the same. I texted the school, custody order on file, pickup unchanged. I emailed the pediatrician's office and attached the PDF because I've learned grown life is just caring and paperwork, repeated. Then I called my mother, who never asks first, only says, "What do you need?" I told her we were fine. She cried anyway, quietly, the way mothers do when the child they raised is raising one of his own. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt responsible, like a roof that held during a storm. I drove to get Jake, and when he climbed in with a drawing of a rocket ship, I said, "Big day, buddy. Burgers tonight." He cheered. My phone buzzed with a new message from Madison. I didn't open it. The order sat on the seat beside me, warm and solid. That was enough. Hayes called as I pulled out. "Remember, this is step 1, he said. "The point is stability, not revenge. Next is securing finances for your household. Then we gather clean evidence for the full hearing. Keep it boring. Judges like boring." I laughed once, surprised I had it in me. "I can do boring," I said. "Good," he replied. "Bank today if you can. Bring the order. They'll know what to do." I thought of storm kits, flashlights, batteries, water, and how older neighbors always have theirs ready before the weather changes. Afternoon sun broke through the last low clouds as I merged onto the highway. The map in my head drew itself. School, burgers, bank, bedtime story. Calm is a plan you live, not a sentence you say. At the next red light, I glanced at the unread message on my phone and let it sit. The traffic turned green. I pressed the pedal. Step 1 was done. Step 2 started now. Step 2 started at the bank. I parked under a crepe myrtle dropping pink petals onto the hood and walked through the glass doors I've opened 100 times on payday Fridays. The lobby smelled like lemon cleaner and printer heat. A teller I recognized from summers ago waved me toward the desk by the vault. "Branch manager's free in 5, she said. I sat, custody order in a manila folder on my knee, remembering how my father balanced a checkbook at the kitchen table. Each line neat, mistakes erased, numbers squared. Money isn't drama. It's groceries, shoes, the copay when the nurse calls. When the receptionist said, "Mr. Carter?" I stood and followed her to a corner office with an American flag pin on the manager's blazer and an FDIC plaque on the wall. She shook my hand and asked how she could help. I placed the order on her desk and said, "I need to secure my son's future, today." Her name tag read Linda. She slid on reading glasses, angled the paper toward the window, and read every line the way good bankers and good nurses read, slowly, once. "Temporary custody," she said, tapping the judge's signature. "And the mother is traveling for 2 weeks?" I nodded. "All right." She pulled a legal pad and drew 3 boxes: access, autopay, alerts. "We will not create chaos," she said. "We will create stability." It was the same tone a foreman used when my roof was replaced after a hailstorm: steady, practical, unflinching. "I'll need IDs, your most recent statements, and confirmation of your address." I had them ready. Older men know to bring the folder, the pen, the charger. She checked each item off and looked up. "With this order, we can act to protect the child's household." She reached for her keyboard. "Let's start with joint accounts." My breath eased. The wheels were turning, and they were pointed forward. "Here's what we can do today," Linda said, fingers moving as she spoke. "Freeze joint accounts temporarily, remove her online access, and switch alerts to you. Your direct deposit will land as usual. Auto pays for essentials, mortgage, utilities, insurance, will continue. Discretionary cards get paused." She turned the monitor so I could see, line items snapping into place like shingles on a roof. "This is not punitive," she added, a gentle glance to check my face. "This is about continuity for a 6-year-old. I thought of Jake's lunchbox and the dentist appointment next month. "We'll also place a note on file, all changes documented, custody order attached. Anyone who's filed a claim or appealed a bill knows the power of a paper trail. If she calls in, we'll refer her to legal." I nodded. No gloating, no speeches, just structure. Linda printed a confirmation sheet and slid over a pen. "Initial here for the freeze." I signed. The ink felt decisive. "Card access will update in stages," Linda said. "Some declines happen within minutes. Full synchronization is complete within 24 hours. She paused. "Expect noise. Keep everything in writing." I remembered insurance seasons, the way phones light up when plans change. "We'll also reissue your debit card with a new number," she continued. "Autopays for Jake's school and healthcare will carry over. Non-essentials won't." She clicked one last box and the system chimed. "There, the accounts are protected." She handed me a checklist, simple as a recipe. "Notify school, pediatrician, and your attorney that financial custody is stable. Save receipts. Don't spend from frozen lines. Don't respond to provocation." I folded it into my folder. Relief isn't fireworks at this age. It's a steady pilot light catching after you relight it twice. "Anything else we should do today?" I asked. Linda nodded toward the pen. "Yes, let's open something for your son." The word future felt nearer than fight. While she pulled forms, my mind flashed an image I didn't ask for. A balcony, a glass raised, a swipe that returned silence. I didn't smile. I didn't want revenge to live in this room. I thought instead of Jake's loose tooth and the way he asks if the tooth fairy uses Venmo, I thought of my father at a Sears counter paying cash for a washer because it's not flashy, it's forever. Life teaches you to separate satisfaction from spite. Linda returned with a small stack. "We'll avoid overdraft drama by moving your emergency fund to a separate account right now," she said. "Then we'll deal with the joint lines." I nodded. The image of that declined swipe drifted away like a bad song fading on the radio. This wasn't about a sting. This was about a roof staying up in October when the wind shifts. "Ready?" Linda asked. "Ready," I said, and I meant it, without heat. "I'm not here to punish her," I said, signing the first form. "I'm here to protect my son's home." Linda met my eyes and said, "That sentence will serve you in every room you enter." She'd clearly sat with men and women at similar tables. Layoffs, probates, divorces, moments when pride wants to steer and wisdom takes the wheel instead. "We'll title accounts to reflect custody," she added, "and you'll keep documentation for court." I initialed by a paragraph about notifications. "Expect a few messy hours. Let the systems do their job. Don't make side deals." It sounded like advice from a neighbor who's rebuilt a porch. Measure twice, cut once, no heroics. I pictured Jake asleep later with the nightlight glowing like a small moon. "Protection, not payback," I repeated, to hear how it sounded aloud. The phrase landed like a board sitting flush. Linda smiled for the first time. "Good," she said. "Now let's build something with his name on it." We opened a custodial account, simple, old-fashioned, like the savings books our parents kept in kitchen drawers. "You'll be the custodian until he's grown," Linda said, "and you'll log contributions, small and steady wins." We set up automatic transfers on payday, the way you feed a garden with a hose instead of waiting for rain. I listed practical goals: school supplies without stress, braces someday, a down payment he earns alongside me. No balloons, no applause, just numbers that will be there when a little boy becomes a man and asks who showed up when it counted. Linda slid the signature card across. "Print, then sign." My handwriting looked like my father's in that moment, blocky, durable. We added Jake as beneficiary on my primary accounts and updated my emergency contacts. Adult moves, boring, on purpose. Linda clicked save and said, "One more piece if you want it." I leaned in. A trust can hold the important things. The word sat heavy, important. We didn't draft a novel. We built a box. "A simple family trust," Linda explained, "funded from your accounts for Jake's benefit. Clear rules, clear successor." She recommended a local attorney for the documents but started the account framework now. Title, purpose, beneficiaries. "Think of it like labeling the bins in your garage," she said. "When you're tired, you still know where things go." Older folks know that truth. Chaos grows where labels don't exist. We transferred a starter amount. Nothing loud, something real. The screen refreshed and showed the new structure like studs in a framed wall. "You'll sleep better," Linda said. I already did. We printed confirmations, added them to the folder, and set alerts to my email, not my phone, because dinner is not for dings anymore. She capped her pen. "Last step. Update cards and close what you don't need." I checked the clock. Time had moved and so had we. The plan clicked, quiet and strong. I left the branch with a folder heavier than when I came in. Outside, the rain had stopped and the sidewalk glistened like fresh wax on a gym floor. I sat in the car, buckled up, and placed the folder on the passenger seat the way you set a sleeping baby into a crib. Careful, grateful. I texted Hayes. Bank secured, custodial account and trust started, receipts to follow. He replied with a thumbs up and 2 words. "Well done." I thought of all the older men I know who measure success by what holds, not what shines. Tight hinges, paid-off tires, a kid who never wonders if the lights will come on. I started the engine and watched the fuel needle nudge past half. For the first time since the message, I felt more builder than survivor. I looked at the unread texts and let them stay unread. The folder sat solid beside me. The next stop was home. The plan had a heartbeat. Money was stabilized. Routine was protected. But I knew courtrooms don't hand out long-term orders on hunches. They want dates, faces, places, evidence you can project on a wall. I called a number I hadn't dialed in years. James Mitchell, private investigator. His voice was the same gravel as before. "Mitchell." I stated the facts the way Hayes taught me. Text, timeline, child with me, wife with another man. "I'm not looking for gossip," I said. "I'm looking for courtroom clarity." He asked for the flight info, any posts, any receipts. I had enough to start. "Give me 48 to 72, he said. "You'll have what a judge can't ignore." We hung up. The house came into view at the end of our street, the one with the oak that drops leaves first every fall. I parked, listened to the engine tick cool, and looked at the folder again. Finances were order. Next came truth, clean and bright. The line had been drawn. I scrolled to a number I hadn't used since a messy vendor dispute years ago and pressed call. Mitchell, he answered. No hello, just gravel and heat, the way old trucks start on cold mornings. James, it's Nathan Carter, I said, and gave him the headline without adjectives. Married, 6-year-old son, wife gone 2 weeks with an old flame, message in writing. He didn't cluck or gasp. He let the silence sort the facts. You want gossip or you want paper? He asked. Paper, I said. Courtroom paper. He cleared his throat like a man setting a tool back in the box. All right, we'll do it clean. I pictured his desk, legal pads, a coffee ring, a camera bag that never lands long. Older men know the value of a straight talker. You don't need a pep speech, you need a plan. Send what you've got, he said. Then don't chase shadows. We hung up. A door had opened. I stepped through. Mitchell didn't sound surprised. People in his line hear the same story with 100 different names. You're not my first father, he said, not unkind. We'll work the basics, arrivals, registrations, public spaces, no cowboy stuff. He sent me a short checklist that read like a hardware receipt. Flight info, known numbers, any hotels mentioned, social handles, recent photos that show jewelry or clothes easy to spot. We're building a trail, not a movie, he wrote. That tone worked on me. Good plumbers don't promise waterfalls, they promise a dry floor. I pulled what I had into a single email, timestamps, the text, the 2-week claim, a snapshot from her Instagram story of a palm tree with a barstool shadow. Got it, he replied a minute later. 48 to 72 hours. He added one more line. While I look, you live. I understood. It wasn't about pretending. It was about refusing to donate more time to a bad fire. The search had started. I sat at the kitchen table and built a packet the way my mother assembled Christmas boxes, careful, complete, labeled. I forwarded her text with the original timestamp, took screenshots that showed the contact name, and saved them as unedited image files. I dug up a photo from last month where Madison had tagged a favorite resort account and added that to the pile. Receipts? Just a shared credit alert from weeks ago for new luggage, but it went in. Phone numbers? Hers, mine. The emergency contact at Jake's school. Mitchell wanted to know who might pick up if someone else called. I scrolled her public posts, filters, sunsets, a bracelet I recognized from our anniversary. I added a note. Andrew Bennett, married to Victoria Caldwell, Atlanta. No drama, no guesses, just breadcrumbs. Mitchell replied, Perfect. This keeps me from chasing smoke. It felt strange to turn marriage into a file, but grown life often fits into folders. I hit send. The hunt had coordinates. Mitchell said, 48 to 72, which is investigator speak for, don't text me every 10 minutes. I didn't. I took a yellow pad and drew a simple timeline, then wrote day 1, day 2, day 3, like a coach drawing quarters. I circled school pickup, bedtime, bank alerts, the dentist reminder next week. I wrote proof, not anger, and underlined it twice. Then I did something small that felt big. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and added exceptions only for the school, Hayes, and Mitchell. Older men know these rules aren't fussy. They're rails on a slick road. Every hour I didn't poke the wound was an hour I could be a father instead of a detective. At night, when the house settled and the water heater ticked, I felt the pull to check her pages. I didn't. I brushed my teeth, packed Jake's lunch, and set coffee for morning. The clock wasn't taunting me. It was working for me. It's easy to imagine what you can't see. A balcony, a glass sweating in humid air, laughter you once knew by heart landing in someone else's ear. I let the picture in, and then I ushered it out, the way you let a fly hit the screen door until it finds daylight. My father used to say, you can't drive and stare in the rear view, and it turns out he was talking about more than traffic. I thought about all the grown folks I know who survived layoffs and chemo and the Euro 8 mess by focusing on what they could control. Show up, pay the bill you can, fix the thing that's actually broken. I made grilled cheese for Jake and cut it diagonal the way he likes. I wiped the counter, checked his backpack, taped the spelling list to the fridge. The balcony was far away. The kitchen was here. I picked here on purpose. The storm could whistle. Our house would hold. The second day, Jake asked if we could stop for donuts before school. We don't do that often, but sometimes a small treat is how you tell a kid, the world is still kind. He picked one with red sprinkles and gave the cashier $1 like he was paying rent. We talked about his reading log, his friend who can whistle, and why the sky looks different after rain. My phone sat face down in the cup holder, exceptions only. At lunch, I walked the long way around the block and waved to Mr. Jones, who was sanding a porch rail he's been meaning to fix since spring. Life goes on where people keep their hands busy. That night, we watched the first half of a ball game. I didn't mute the commercials. I used them to fold socks. When Jake fell asleep, I checked email. Nothing yet from Mitchell. Good. That meant he was working. It also meant I was living. That was the point. On the morning of day 3, Mitchell texted, "Driveway in 10. I poured 2 coffees into mismatched mugs because I knew he wouldn't care which one he got. He arrived wearing a windbreaker that had seen miles, a camera bag, and the face of a man who sleeps when the job is done, not when it's convenient. We sat at the table where Jake does homework. He didn't dramatize the handoff. He slid a thick manila envelope across the wood and rested his palm on it like a notary. "You asked for courtroom quality," he said. "This is it." My stomach tightened, not from fear but from the sense that a chapter was about to close hard. He set a compact recorder beside the envelope. "Audio from public places where it's legal," he said. "Useful if needed." Then he leaned back and let me decide when to look. I took a breath, the kind men take before turning a key in a door they already own. I opened the envelope and laid the photos edge to edge like tiles. Cancun sun on water. A hotel sign reflected in a glass door. Madison's hand resting on Andrew's shoulder. The bracelet from our anniversary flashing like it raised its own hand to testify. A dinner bill with the resort logo, time-stamped to the hour she texted me, "Don't be jealous." A balcony kiss at dusk, blurred just enough to be human, clear enough to be undeniable. Each image wore a clean timestamp, location metadata logged on a separate page. "Angles are public," Mitchell said. "No trespass, no tricks." He was right. You could have hung these in a courtroom and read them at the distance a judge prefers. My eyes kept catching on small things. Familiar ring, familiar laugh lines aimed away from home. There's mercy in evidence. It ends debate. I stacked the photos again, this time into 3 piles. Timeline, location, intimacy. A story had hardened into proof. Mitchell's packet held more than pictures. There were copies of itinerary printouts under A. Bennett, reservation notes, and 2 receipts where Andrew signed the bill with a sloppy flourish that matched his public signature online. There was a photo of them checking in at a tour desk, the resort's name on a plaque, the date clear as a clock. No private recordings, no hotel room shots. Just enough public places to draw a straight line without stepping over one. He added a typed log, times, locations, who stood where, what they wore, like a carpenter's cut list, neat and exact. "If Victoria Caldwell ever asks, this answers," he said. The room felt cooler, the way air changes when a storm line passes and the pressure drops. Cancun wasn't a rumor anymore. It was a line item. I slid the receipts under the photos and looked at the sum. Paradise, priced and dated. They hadn't been careful. They hadn't needed to be, until now. We closed the envelope, and the table looked like a workbench after a repair. Tools cleaned, problem solved, mess contained. "You'll give copies to Hayes," Mitchell said. "He'll know how to present it so the room breathes easy." He meant no drama, just order. I added the packet to my growing folder. Custody order, bank confirmations, trust documents, now evidence. The spine of a case, built like a porch, post by post, level and square. "You want me to keep eyes on them?" he asked. I thought about cost, about need, about the point of proof. "No," I said. "We have enough." He nodded, finished his coffee, and left like a man who always knows where the exits are. I stood in the doorway and felt something heavier than relief. Certainty. The part of me that still wanted an explanation shrank in the light. Truth was here, documented. I texted Hayes one word, packet, and a time. Paper would carry this load. I cleared the kitchen table like a workbench and laid the photos out one last time. Timeline left to right, location stacked, receipts clipped. I slipped each set into protective sleeves because paper deserves respect when it carries truth. Then I reached for a manila envelope, thick enough to feel like a tool, not a letter. On the flap, I wrote the date in block letters, the way my father labeled breaker switches in our garage. I added a cover sheet, no speeches, just bullet points. Who, where, when. I didn't write a threat. I didn't need to. Evidence speaks. I sealed the flap, pressed the glue with my palm, and heard that soft sound envelopes make when the seams marry. It's a small sound, but older men know it, the sound of a decision finishing. I looked at the folder beside it, custody, bank, trust, and slid the envelope on top. The stack felt balanced now, not angry, ready. I picked up my keys. On the front, in straight, careful letters, I printed a name, Victoria Caldwell, not to humiliate, to inform the one person with standing to act. In my 20s, I might have sent an anonymous message and waited for fireworks. Men my age understand a different math. You go to the adult in the room, you give them the facts. You let them steer their own ship. Victoria isn't a rumor in Atlanta. She's the kind of woman who signs both sides of the check and means it. I thought about the times I'd seen her in the business pages, about the way steady hands handle bad news. Brief, accurate, documented. I added a single line under her name. Delivered by hand. If you believe the truth matters, you don't hide behind a burner account. You show up with your back straight. I put the envelope in my briefcase and zipped it shut. The zipper's metal teeth met clean. That click ran up my spine like resolve. I could have driven to Andrew's house and made a scene in the driveway. That's what younger anger wants, an audience. But the point wasn't spectacle, it was accountability. Andrew has a wife, a legal partner, a leader who signs the payroll that pays for his cufflinks. If someone set a fire in my garage, I'd want the neighbor who saw smoke to knock on my door, not tell a friend of a friend online. Victoria is the door. She keeps the keys. And this wasn't a whisper. This was civic-level truth. Dates, faces, places. I pictured the men I respect in hard hats and ties alike, and what they all share when things go wrong. They inform the person in charge, and they put it in writing. I wasn't delivering drama. I was delivering a record. I checked the address twice, the same way I check a child's fever twice before calling the nurse. Then I started the truck. The road felt dry, even under gray sky. Caldwell Tower cuts the midtown sky like a clean blade. I parked in the visitor's garage, rode the elevator with people who smell like meetings and deadlines, and stepped into a lobby that could pass for a quiet museum. Stone, glass, no clutter. The receptionist looked up with that practiced, calm corporate buildings teach. "Appointment?" she asked. "I need to deliver a private packet to Mrs. Caldwell," I said, hand on my briefcase. She didn't blink. "Name?" "Nathan Carter." She made a call, listened, then nodded me toward a private elevator where a security badge blinked green. 60th floor. The doors opened to soft carpet and a view of Atlanta that makes traffic look like toy cars. An assistant met me, efficient, neat, not unkind. "Mr. Carter," she said, "Mrs. Caldwell will see you." I followed her past calm art and humming silence into an office where the light felt like a level placed on a beam. The room balanced itself. Victoria Caldwell rose when I entered, not out of friendliness but out of habit. Leaders stand to meet problems. Silver hair pinned with zero vanity, a blazer the color of a good courtroom chair. No unnecessary jewelry, eyes like clear glass. She gestured to a chair and remained standing, which told me this would be brief. "You have something for me, Mr. Carter?" she said, voice even. I placed the envelope on her desk with two hands, the way you set down a heavy dish on a holiday table. "Facts," I said. "No commentary." She didn't ask what. She slid a letter opener through the flap like a surgeon opening a neat line and withdrew the stack. Her assistant faded back, closed the door, and the air stilled. Victoria didn't gasp or curse. She scanned. She stacked. She restacked. Her face did not change. But the room did. The way air in a shop changes when someone flips the breaker and the saw stops cold. She lifted the first photo, then the second, then the receipt with Andrew's signature leaning like it always does. A timestamp. a balcony, a laugh that used to live at my table, now caught in foreign light. She looked at the typed log, locations, times, legal angles noted along the bottom in small print. Public spaces, no trespass. She said it to herself more than to me, a lawyer's mind auditing the path. She set Exhibit A, the text, on top, tapped the corners into a square, and slid the stack back into the envelope as if putting a tool back where it belongs. "Thank you," she said. Not warm, precise. She didn't ask why I'd come. She didn't need a motive. The facts arrived dressed appropriately. She looked past me, out at a skyline she helps manage, then back at me. "One moment," she said, and reached for her phone. It was the moment a pilot's voice changes mid-flight, same volume, different weather. She didn't dial fast. She dialed right. You could feel decades of boardrooms in the way her thumb moved, measured, final, not performative. She pressed speaker. One ring, two. "Victoria?" Andrew's voice, all breezy public charm, slid into the room like cologne. "I told you, Miami might run long. She didn't glance at me. "You have 24 hours to return to Atlanta," she said, each word laid like brick. "If you don't, do not come back at all." Silence has a sound. In that office, it sounded like a file drawer closing and locks engaging. "Victoria, wait," he started. She touched the screen. The call ended. Her assistant stepped in as if summoned by gravity. Victoria handed her the envelope and said, "Make copies. Counsel gets one. Security is notified. Assets, hold status." Then she looked at me the way a surgeon looks at a chart after the decision to operate. "Mr. Carter, you did the right thing." The room exhaled. I hadn't breathed. Her words didn't echo. They settled, like paperwork filed in the correct drawer, like bolts torqued to spec. The assistant moved with a quiet speed older men admire. No wasted steps, no fluster. "Calendar legal for the afternoon," Victoria said, eyes never leaving mine. "Note, prior notice given, evidence received." She meant for the record, not for me. She extended her hand. "Thank you for bringing facts, not theater." I shook it, feeling the strength that builds companies and ends nonsense. "I'm protecting my son," I said. "Good," she replied. "So am I." There's a moment in every repair when the house shifts and the door that stuck all summer swings true. That's what it felt like as I left her office. Hinges resetting. In the elevator down, my phone buzzed. Mitchell, one line. He booked a flight. Another buzz. Hayes. If Caldwell moves, the court will understand. I watched the floors tick toward the lobby. Time wasn't crawling anymore. It was marching. The lobby looked the same, but it wasn't. Security badges blinked more often. Two attorneys in tailored suits moved past with the determined faces of people who already know the next 3 steps. Outside, the tower's glass caught a burst of sun like a verdict written in light. My truck door thunked shut with that solid sound older vehicles make when they're paid for. I sat, briefcase on the passenger seat, and let the stillness tell me what my nerves already knew. The machine had started. Not a mob. A process. Legal. Documented. Relentless. My phone buzzed again. Mitchell. Gate camera shows him leaving resort. Then Hayes. Drop packet at my office. We'll file notice of additional evidence. I thought of Jake's spelling list and the burgers I promised, and how a man can hold 2 truths. War in one hand, dinner plans in the other. I put the truck in drive. Behind me, elevator lights kept blinking upward. Ahead, the road cleared. By the time I hit the interstate, Mitchell sent a photo that could have been any airport anywhere. Andrew in sunglasses, jaw tight, moving fast with a carry-on that suddenly looked small. "On the red-eye," Mitchell wrote. Panic looks the same on men who thought they were untouchable. Shoulders high, mouth tight, phone welded to the palm. I didn't gloat. Not because I'm a saint, but because the feeling that filled me wasn't triumph. It was closure, the kind a mechanic feels when the engine stops knocking after the right bolt turns. Hayes called while I merged. "When he lands, things will move. We'll keep your side boring and clean." "Boring is my favorite word today," I said. He chuckled once. "Good. Drop the packet. Go be dad." I exited toward his office, the sun finally burning through last night's rain. Somewhere over the gulf, a man watched his life shrink to a tray table. On Peachtree, I turned on my blinker and signaled left. By the time I dropped the packet at Hayes's office, Mitchell texted a photo of wrought iron gates lit by floodlights and a man in sunglasses looking smaller than his suit. Landed. Served at Caldwell Estate, he wrote. Victoria does things above board and on paper. Process server, 2 attorneys, 1 security chief with a clipboard, no shouting, no scene. Hayes called next. He's been noticed. Petition, asset hold, counsel looped. I pictured those big gates the way you picture a hospital door when a surgeon steps out to tell you the truth. You can push, but they don't open unless the person in charge wants them to. Mitchell added. He signed for receipt. Face went white. The image stayed with me not because I enjoy another man's fear, but because it meant something grown men understand. Consequences had finally caught up with behavior. I put my phone down, picked up Jake from school, and let him talk about rockets. Somewhere across town, an envelope felt heavier than his luggage. Mitchell's next text read like a punch list. Access codes disabled. 30 minutes to collect personal effects. Security present. I've been in job sites when a foreman says, shut it down, and everyone knows exactly who has authority. This felt like that. Victoria's attorneys handed Andrew a clipboard of orders. Asset freeze, property access revoked, counsel engaged. No yelling, no back and forth, just signatures and timestamps. He rolled a suitcase down a driveway he used to glide up with both hands free. Panic has a gate. You can spot it from a block away. Hayes called while I set out burger buns. This makes our side simple, he said. Courts can smell process. Stay boring. I flipped the burner low and thought about how older neighbors handle windstorms. You tie down what's yours, and you let the rest blow past. Out there, a man who thought he was untouchable learned what 30 minutes feels like when someone else holds the keys. Inside, my timer dinged. That evening, my email pinged with the clean, impersonal tone Linda had set for account alerts. Transaction declined. Then another. Cancun Hotel. Resort restaurant. A beach shop with $6 sunglasses priced like a joke. I didn't cheer. The sound didn't feel like revenge. It felt like a system working the way adults design systems to work. Predictable, documented, boring. I pictured the front desk smile turning professional. I'm sorry, ma'am. Do you have another card? Maybe she did. Maybe she didn't. I rinsed plates and packed tomorrow's lunch while the alerts chimed a steady rhythm. When you're over 30, victory stops looking like fireworks and starts looking like lights that stay on and bills that clear. At bedtime, Jake asked for the rocket book again, and I read about heat shields and re-entry, how friction burns off what can't come home. My phone buzzed once more, quiet as a thermostat clicking. Somewhere far south of Georgia, champagne went flat over a closed tab. The next morning, Mitchell texted 2 words, checkout attempt. Not a photo, not gossip, just a note that the resort bill had finally met a wall. She didn't text me, or if she did, I didn't open it. People my age learn the discipline of letting silence do what arguments never will. By afternoon, a new alert, airline purchase, hit the old joint card before the freeze propagated to every corner. The system swatted it back like a screen door in wind. She would find another way. Everyone does when they need to. A one-way ticket isn't hard to buy if you've kept a little aside in a separate pocket. I didn't track flight numbers. I packed a snack for Jake's practice, tied his laces, and watched him race the chalk line. Somewhere over the Gulf or the Delta or the dark between, a woman who once shared my mortgage flew toward a city where the rules had already changed. I turned off the porch light. She reached our street on a day when the sky looked polished. I know because the neighbors texted a photo later, the kind of community heads-up people send when a strange car idles too long. A bright red sold sign leaned in our yard like a final period. I owned the house before we married. Paper says what memory sometimes blurs. I had listed it quickly, accepted a cash offer, and scheduled the move while the custody order stabilized the routine. Locks changed, utilities transferred. A new family walked casseroles across that threshold with the realtor. She tried her old key. Tumblers didn't turn. Through the window, kids running, a woman laughing, a life that did not include her. I wasn't there to see it, but I know the sound a locked door makes when you don't belong to it anymore. It is not loud. It is firm. Back at my kitchen table, I labeled another folder, Final Hearing. The pen didn't hesitate. I hired a moving crew with instructions that would have made my mother proud. Pack gently, label clearly, deliver to her parents' address, leave on the porch, ring once. No thrown hangers, no broken frames. 8 years of dresses, lotions, keepsakes, and solo photos became neat stacks of cardboard with black marker titles. Madison, bedroom, Madison, bath, Madison, personal. It's amazing how much of a life fits into boxes when love steps out of the room. Her father called my house phone, old-fashioned landline I keep for emergencies, and left a measured message. They had received the boxes. They would tell her. No blame, just facts, one adult to another. I listened twice, then deleted it like you set down a heavy tool after it's done its job. Jake's homework covered the same table. Spelling words, glue stick, a rocket cut from construction paper. We cleaned up. We stacked our own small piles. Lunch money, permission slip, Tuesday. Somewhere in Marietta, a porch sighed under the weight of labeled past. A week later, the courtroom felt cooler than the day outside. Fluorescent lights humming over wooden pews that have heard this story 1,000 times with different names. Hayes spoke in the same weather report voice he used on day 1. Exhibit A, the message. Exhibit B, the photos and receipts. Exhibit C, school and medical routines. Facts, not adjectives. Madison sat with a public defender who'd been appointed that morning. No funds, no retainer. The judge read the 11 words aloud and looked at the timeline like a carpenter checks a level. No sag, no twist. Temporary custody is converted to permanent, he said. Visitation suspended pending evaluation. Marital dissolution granted. Property awards per title. Financial claims denied. The gavel hit like a nail set clean and flush. Hayes tapped the order square and slid a certified copy to me. Boring carried the day, he murmured. I nodded, throat tight. We walked into sunlight that felt honest. Behind us, the room swallowed our footsteps. We stepped out of this courtroom into noon light, my palm around Jake's small hand, the order warm in a manila folder under my arm. The building hummed behind us like a refrigerator that finally leveled out. Hayes said, "Keep it boring," and disappeared into an elevator. I breathed for the first time all morning. Jake looked up and asked if judges wear pajamas under their robes. I laughed, real, surprised, and said, "Only on Saturdays." We crossed the plaza like any father and son finishing an errand. Park the car, grab lunch, talk about spelling words. A fountain clattered nearby. I could smell hot concrete and street food. There's a kind of peace older men recognize. Not fireworks, just the hinge moving true after you set the screw. I wasn't happy. I was steady. We drove to a diner with sticky menus and good fries. I let him order a milkshake. He clinked his straw against mine. "We okay, Dad?" he asked. "We are," I said, and I meant it. That evening, at my kitchen table, I wrote a short letter in neat, square print, the same hand I use for breaker labels and lunch notes. No speeches, no thorns, just a line drawn where chaos had lived. I slid the letter into a large envelope with certified copies of the order and the divorce decree. On the outside, I wrote her full name and her parents' address, each digit checked twice. Grown life is often this simple. You put the right papers in the right hands at the right time. Before I sealed it, I read the note once more. "You told me not to be jealous. I'm not. Jack is safe. The house was mine before we married. You wanted freedom. Now you have it." I signed only my first name. I didn't watch her read it. That was the point. The court had spoken. The bank had steadied. The door had closed. I turned off the lamp, checked on Jake, and let the quiet hold.